So good morning and welcome to this week's Breakfast with Mike. And this week, we're going to talk about a problem that I don't think a lot of people think is a problem, but it is. And I know that clouded in mystery, but it'll become clear in a second. Training for the last, 30 plus years, and I can't go back much farther than that because that's as far back as my license goes. But for the last 30 some odd years, training has always taught us about what top producers do, where they get their business from, okay? And it's always been a high percentage of it comes from repeat and referrals. We've been taught that for years. You get in front of any audience, ask people where most of their business comes from, and they'll say it to you same way, referrals and repeat clients. And that's great for those that have been doing it for a long time and are successful at it. And I know some people that have been very successful at it. But the market dictates where we are going to get business from. And when you've been doing it a while and you've got a good referral network, you can generate business from that referral network. And I understand that. But I'm noticing that even some of my best referral network students are struggling. And I started trying to figure out why. So, you know me, or at least some of you do. When there's a why in there, I start asking questions. And that's the way I learn, is I ask a lot of questions. And so that's what I did here. I started asking questions. Now, for many, many years, we have been taught that people list with you or work with you, whether it's a buyer or a seller, for one of two reasons. They either really like you, which is the referral network side of this, or they think you're the best, which is the experience side. Those are the two reasons. They either really like you or they think you're the best. Well, it's just my opinion, but I think we're missing something here. Okay? And I think we're missing a really big piece. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because if you have a good referral network and you're sitting back saying, don't worry, the market will shift and my business will pick up again, I think you're going to continue to struggle for a while if that's your thinking. And if you're thinking, well, I've been doing this so long, I've got a lot of experience. You know, we used to hear that all the time. Once you've been doing this, you'll get a lot of repeat business. People come back to you. You know, you've been doing it 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, whatever the number is, 30 minutes. I don't care what the number is. That you'll get more business. Well, I don't think that's happening either. And I think the August 17th deadline is going to have a lot to do with a shift for business, because we're going to have to answer some questions we've never been asked before. I was talking with a broker last night, and he wants me to come in and do some things for his company. And so I started asking questions, and then all of a sudden those questions led to him asking me some questions. And one of those questions that he was asking was, I'm afraid people are going to go direct to the listing agent. And my listing agents are going to work twice as hard and make half the money. How do we answer that? And we talked about it. I'm afraid that my agents that have been doing this for a while, that are slower right now in a considerably still good market, are going to stay slower because their habits are not in a place where they need to be. So we talked about that. And while I was talking with him, I was saying to myself, that's exactly what I had put out to talk about today on this call. I don't think you can wait. I don't think you can sit back and say, I'm going to get the referrals automatically. I don't think you can sit back and say, I've been doing this for 3 years, 5 years, whatever, and people are going to do business with me because I'm experienced. I don't think that answers the question. I was going to put this out. I was going to put out on the flyer that there are literally hundreds of people that are doing videos that are supposed to be the solution to the August 17th problem that's coming up. I mean, there's videos all over the place. And I watch them just like a good trainer should. I watch the videos. And I got to be honest with you, I'm laughing more than I'm taking notes. Because most of these people don't have a clue. They don't know what you're going through on a day-to-day basis. They claim they do. And a lot of them are agents that claim they're top producing agents. And I say to myself, yeah, no, they're not. They might think they are. And by the way, the prices have increased so dramatically that you don't have to close as many deals to make anywhere near the kind of money that you might have otherwise needed to make to be considered a top producer. When you start looking at the average sale price and what it's done and what's changed, it used to be maybe you needed to close 40, 50, 60 deals to be in that category. Now maybe you need to close 15 to get to the same numbers. That does not make you a top producer. I'm sorry. That is grossly inflated because of what the market has done. It does not make you a top producer. And I learned that every single week talking with students about agents that claim they're top producers doing things that only a rookie would do. Just because they've closed a few deals, they think they're top producers. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever side you come down on this, they're misinformed. Okay? They're not. I know what the numbers say, but they're not. So let's go back to 2 reasons. People list with you because they like you or they think you're the best. I'm going to blow that right out of the water right now. Okay? And I can do this really easily because many of my students have told me recently of scenarios where they thought they had a listing locked up and didn't get it. Somebody that was in their sphere that interviewed with them and they didn't get it. Well, what happened to they like me? They're always going to list with me. That's changing. And it's going to continue to change. And I believe August 17th is going to have he's going to play a big role in this because sellers and buyers are going to ask more questions. Why should I list with you? Well, because I'm great. Yeah, you're going to need a better answer. Well, I've been doing this now for 10 years. I mean, obviously, I'm good at this. Really? What makes you good at it? Your 5 closings a year? That's what makes you good? Your 10, 12, whatever it is? That's not what makes you good. That's changing. We're going to need to do more. We're going to need to show more. People are going to ask more questions of you. What are you doing? Why should I list with you? Well, I'm a nice guy. That's not going to cut it anymore. Too many students that I have are going out on appointments and then calling me up later and saying, I don't understand. What do you mean? I went on the appointment. They told me they were going to give me the listing. They just needed another couple of weeks to get it ready. And now somebody else has listed it. What happened? What happened is this. You didn't ask enough questions. You didn't learn why they are where they are. And let me explain to you what I mean by that, because this really hit me a lot during the week. And it hit me more than once. I made a comment earlier in the week about buyers and sellers actually going through a process in their mind. People don't just wake up and say, I'm selling the house or I'm moving or whatever. They don't do that. There has been a series of events that causes them to get to a point where they say, okay, enough's enough, it's time to move. They start out down here. I'm happy. Now, everything's not perfect, but I'm happy. And then things start to happen that cause them to say, maybe I should start thinking about moving. Maybe we need this. Maybe we, and then all of a sudden something hits them and that's it. Boom. All right, we got to move. And then they call us and we talk with them, and like you should, you ask questions and they tell you, no, I've got to get out of here. And we incorrectly assume that because they say we got to get out of here, that they're truly motivated. I'm not saying they won't be, and I'm not saying that you can't sell those once in a while, because you can. But what I'm learning is, even in some of those scenarios, deals blow up. And they blow up because somewhere in that process of them going from here up to here, there was something that caused it that wasn't as big a problem as they made it out to be. Sometimes we hear what we want to hear. Oh no, Mike, they're motivated. I hear that so many times from students. One of the things, and some of you that know me know I do this, typically I will tell my students, when I am hearing that too often, I will tell them, I want you to go back and I want you to rate every single person you're working with 1 to 5 on a scale, on a motivation scale. 1 being not motivated, 5 being highly motivated, and then we're going to talk about it. And then when we talk about it, they start telling me about all these motivated people that they have, until I start asking questions, and all of a sudden the one that they thought was a 4 is really a 2. And I'll be honest with you, I was confused. How did you think they were a 4? And I found out they were a 2. And what I learned was, we're not asking enough questions to find out what in that process did we miss, because we had to miss something. If we thought they were a 4 and they're really only a 2, we had to miss something. What did we miss? Why do people list with us? Old school thinking. They like us or they think we're the best. But Zig Ziglar said something many, many years ago. And he's known for all these quotes, but one of them is, people don't care what you know until they know you care about them. People don't care what you know until they know you care about them. How do we determine if they understand that we care about them? How do they determine that we care about them? We have to ask more questions. about them. We're not doing that. We're asking one question. In our mind, we're asking one question. How motivated are they? Most of my students all know that when you tell me, oh, I got a listing this week, I start talking to you about, good, let's talk about it. Why are they moving? What happens when they don't sell it? Where are they going? I start asking these questions. And I ask them, where do you think they are motivation-wise? Number one answer, oh, they're at least a 4. Then we keep asking questions, find out, nope, they're not a 4, they're a 2. Now, I'm not saying that 2s can't sell. They can. But do they sell with fewer or more problems? I think all these videos that we're seeing about all these so-called experts that have the solution to August 17th are missing a very important piece. And I was reminded of what it was the other night. I didn't realize I was reminded of it until I started putting today together, and then I realized it. And there was a movie. I like movies. And in the movie, the Oakland A's were trying to decide how they were going to move forward after they lost 3 or 4 of their star players. And all these scouts were in the room and they were talking about, well, we've been doing this and we're looking for this guy, and we're looking for this guy. And the GM at the time was Billy Beane, and he kept going, no, no, no. You don't understand the problem. And they kept saying, no, we do understand the problem. And he kept saying, no, you don't. The problem is there's teams up here and there's teams down here. And then there's probably, I forget what he said, like, 50 million dollars more of crap, and then there's us. You're trying to solve this problem. You're trying to replace these people. We can't afford it. We're not going to spend that money. We can't afford it. Everybody was trying to solve the problem of replacing these players, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was they didn't have the money to replace those players. Now, it has nothing to do with real estate. And yet it has everything to do with real estate. What is the problem right now for the lack of inventory that most of you have? You keep saying it's the market. I don't think it is. I don't think the market is the problem at all. I think we're trying to solve the wrong problem. The problem in my mind is we're not spending enough time with the people that we meet to learn why they're not here, they're up here. How did they get there? Let's stop for a minute and say they're not motivated. Well, that's easy to figure out, right? We all know that. Where are you going to go if you don't sell? Well, we'll just stay here. Okay. That's an easy one. No, we're going to move. Great. Why? No, we have to. Okay, great. Why? What do you mean? Why do you have to? What happens if we don't sell the house? We've got to get them talking about all those things that happen, all those steps that they went through in their head that got them here. Because all of a sudden they think they need to sell, and they convince us that they need to sell. It's got nothing to do with, like me, think we're the best. That's not why people are listing with us now. That's not why we're losing some of these. We're losing them because we're not paying attention to what the real problem is. All these videos are talking about the solution to the problem. I got news for you. They don't even know what the problem is. The problem is not that things are going to drastically change on August 17th. Here, let me prove it to you. I've asked this question, so I already know the answer. What has changed? Now, I know we've got a number of different states here that are represented, but what has changed on your listing contract? What's going to change on August 17th on your listing contract? I asked that question a number of times this week, and you know what I kept hearing? Well, we're not going to be able to disclose the co-broke on the form. That's not true. Your listing contract is not going to change. It's not going to say anything different than it has. There's going to be a spot in there where here's how much I'm charging, and here's how much we'll offer to a buyer broker or a co-broke. That's not changing. But we're thinking that's changing. It's not changing. What's changing is we can't disclose what that number is on the multiple listing service. That's what's changing. We're trying to solve a problem that's not a problem. The problem is not that we can't offer co-broke or buyer broker fee. We can. That's not the problem. But that's the one we're trying to solve. Buyer broker agreement. What has changed about your buyer broker agreement? First of all, realize that buyer brokerage has been around for more than 30 years. This is not new. The consumer form that I asked this question a lot this week. The consumer form that you're supposed to have the buyer sign at the first face-to-face meeting, 80% of the agents are not even bringing it up. Well, this is the law. It's been the law for more than 20 years, and we're not even bringing it up. Now, I know a lot of you are, because I've taught you to. But a lot of the others are not. I asked somebody on Monday when they told me about some of the changes that were coming, and I said, okay, what are the repercussions? What happens if somebody is caught not using a buyer broker agreement? Well, yeah, if there's no repercussion, what's going to change? I think we have to rethink what we're doing. We have to realize that we need to spend more time figuring out what the real problem is with these buyers and sellers. Why do people work with you as a buyer agent? I saw an article the other day that says that there's some consumer watchdog group that's saying that buyer commissions are going to be 2% or less. Now, I know negotiations are negotiable and we don't discuss them, but this was the article. The article spelled it out, said exactly that, 2% or less. That's what it said. In my opinion, this is great news for you. What? This is great news for you. I used to say this. People ignored me. There's no surprise. But I used to say that if you don't show your own value, why should they pay you? If you don't believe you're worth it, why should they pay you? I've also said this. Somebody that gets in the business, they've been in the business 30 minutes versus somebody who's been in it 30 years. If you go show a house, the same house, never mind the split with the company, but you go show the same house, you both write an offer. Or here, I'll make it easy. The houses are next door to each other. So now we got two buyers, two houses. We both write an offer. You get paid the exact same amount. Never mind the split. That's between you and the broker. But whatever was being offered by the listing company is paid to you regardless of whether you've been in the business 15 minutes or 15 years. Now, you can make the argument that the person who's been in the business 15 years got a lot more experience, they should get paid more. But I know some people that have been in the business 15 years should get paid less because they've never learned. Why is that? How is that going to determine what you should or shouldn't get paid? One of the things that I have said right along has been the buyer-broker agreement, whatever it is that you decide, you and the buyer come to an agreement on. That's what you're worth. That's what you're worth. You're worth whatever you come to an agreement on, whether that is, 4 apples or 12 apples or whatever number it is, that's what you're worth. Asking the seller to pay a part of that, that's a totally separate transaction. You're worth whatever that buyer-broker agreement says you're worth, that you and the buyer have agreed to. That's what you're worth. Well, why should a buyer work with me? What makes me so different? Nothing. If you've never been trained, nothing makes you different. They make a really good argument, one of them, that says all we do as buyer agents is we go unlock the door and we let them decide how much they want to write. There are agents that's all they do. They don't negotiate for you. They don't know the first thing about negotiations. I asked somebody the other day, I said, you write an offer and there's woods behind the house. And 6 months after the closing, they put in a new subdivision. And now your buyer's complaining because they thought they were going to have privacy for 30 years. They've got a brand new subdivision. Whose fault is that? It's yours. Why? Because you didn't go down to the town hall and do any research to find out what might be happening to that house in the next few years. That's on you. Do we do that? Do most agents do that kind of research before they write an offer for a buyer? No, they don't. And I could give you 20 or 30 other things that they don't do that they should do. I was asked this question, and I'm going to share it with you. I was asked, how am I going to find out as a buyer agent what they're offering before I go show homes? Mike, what are you teaching? And I said, I'm not teaching anything about that. I don't think you should be asking. And they're like, well, wait a minute. I need to know what I'm getting paid. Are you using a buyer-broker agreement? Yeah. Then you know what you're getting paid. What you're getting paid is what's on the buyer-broker agreement. It's not what the seller's agent agrees to give you. That's a separate transaction. You keep hearing them calling it decoupling. Well, when you think about this, why do you need to know what that listing office is going to offer? Why do you need to know that? Well, I need to know what they're going to pay me. They're not paying you. They never have. You've been paid by the buyer. I know that the documents might disagree with this, but you've been paid by the buyer, especially if you're using a buyer-broker agreement. If your buyer-broker agreement says you're going to get paid 4 apples, well, then that's what you're going to get paid. Now, once you decide to write an offer, then I think that as the buyer agent, one of the things you need to find out is, will this seller offer anything as a concession that might offset some of that money? But you don't need to know before you show the house. You already know what you're getting paid. There's a lot of people going to disagree with me on this. There's going to be an awful lot of weak agents who are going to be calling listing agents all the time saying, what are you offering? If you called me, I'd be saying nothing. We're not offering anything. That's what I'd be saying. Now, it's not the agreement I would have with my seller, because I would say to my seller, I think it'd be in our best interest to offer something. But I'm not going to disclose that till I know what you're doing. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to disagree with that. That's okay. Not the first time somebody disagreed with me. I hope you understand that if you're using that buyer broker agreement, you already know what you're going to get paid. It's not dependent on the listing office. And I think that when you ask the question, why should a buyer work with me? This is the number one thing that you've got to solve. Why should they work with me? Because I'm worth it. Great. What do you do? What do you mean? What do I do? I go into MLS, I find them homes, I bring them in, I help negotiate. What do you do? I could train a monkey to learn to use MLS. What do you do? What makes you different? And if you can't answer that question, you're not going to get paid as much as you're worth. You need to be able to answer that question. One of the things that my students do is they will turn around and talk with a buyer and say, well, yeah, okay, we'll look in MLS, but I'm not expecting to find a house in MLS. Most of the really good deals are networked with other listing agents. I network with them. If I can't find it that way, I will go look at other agents that have listings and I'll talk to them. If I can't find it that way, I'll call old expireds and old sale by owners, and I'll see if they're thinking about moving. If I can't find it that way, and you know the area I'll knock on every door in Oklahoma if I have to, but I'll find your house. How many agents are willing to do that? How many agents do you know personally, not on this call, but how many do you know personally that have ever gone door knocking on behalf of their buyer? Ever? You want to know what makes you worth more money? Do things that are paid better. When you start doing things, when you show that buyer that you're going to do things that nobody else is doing, then you're going to get paid. Why should I list my home with you? Well, because I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. Really? So did those scouts for Oakland, but they're not working for Oakland anymore. Why? Because they've never changed their thinking. Why should I list with you? What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to put it in MLS. I'm going to put up a sign. I'm going to put it on my 4,000 different websites. Then I'm going to hope it sells. That's not what you should be getting paid for. What makes you different? I know what my students do. I know what I used to do. I had a network of buyer agents. They were the best buyer agents in this area. And the first thing I did when I got a listing is I called them and I talked to them. And there were periods where I tracked it. More than 75% of the listings that I sold that were sold through me were sold through my network. More than 75% before things ever hit MLS. Boy, did I get some hate mail. I can't believe it. Every time I go to show one of your listings, it's under agreement. I know. And boy, I know you, and I hope that continues. I couldn't say that. No, I couldn't say it. No, it's not a good idea. We're trying to solve the wrong problem. We're trying to solve oh, people like me or they think I'm the best. That's not it anymore. You have got to be able to demonstrate what separates you. You have also got to be better at learning that what got them to this point. We're not doing this. I'll take the hit for that. I didn't push it enough on you, but I'm going to. We need to learn more about what got you to that point. There's one thing that's definitely going to change on August 17th. You're going to have to show why you're worth it, because more and more people are going to ask that question. And if you can't answer that, you're not going to get an awful lot of business, no matter how many people like you or how long you've been in the business. They're not going to list with you. They're not going to work with you as a buyer unless you can show them you're worth it. Solve that problem. Never mind all these videos that talk about this form and that form. I had one of my students send me some of the forms that they're going to use in their state. And I'll tell you what, the first thought I had was embarrassing. It's embarrassing. What they keep putting on these forms for you guys. I don't envy you at all. 5-page, 6-page buyer broker agreements. Boy, you can tell who wrote those. Wasn't me. I could do an agreement with a buyer in a half a page and never have a problem. But that's just not the way things are anymore. If you want to get more buyer contracts signed, you need more buyer broker agreements. In order to get more buyer broker agreements, you need to show why you're worth it. What makes you worth it? And what makes you worth it is directly relevant to their problem. It's no question, it's their problem. If you haven't been able to figure this out, you're not going to get it. Why should I list my home with you? What's their real problem? How did they get here? Find that, solve that, you walk out with the listing and it'll sell. I hope I have opened some eyes. I hope, and I know a lot of you don't have cameras on, but I wish I could see your faces. I wish I could look in your eyes and be able to say, okay, they get it. Because I'll bet you more than half of you still don't get this. That's okay. I'm persistent. I'll keep bringing it up. I'll teach you. Because unless we solve that, got a funny feeling that your business is not going to grow. And then all of a sudden we're going to see, oh my God, the real estate industry is slowing down. Nope, it's not got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with us. You ever notice top producers make their money no matter what kind of market they're in? How is that possible? Because they know how to solve problems. We got to get better at that. I'm going to turn off the recording and let these guys throw some questions because I can't see the questions, but I know they're out there. I wish you were here. Maybe next time. Okay.